in it. She just knew that she had to. I mean, dinner time was 5:30. That's when my dad got home from work, and 5:30 dinner had to be on the table, needed to be on the table. And there, I remember her versions of things like spaghetti that were, that she did with, like ground beef. A lot of ground beef. Spaghetti was with ground beef. Tacos were with ground beef.
We call those white girl tacos.
Yeah, she might have done a version of lasagna with, just ground beef. We had a lot of casseroles, tuna casserole. For some reason, she insisted on making liver and onions once a month, which I just could not stomach.
Yeah.
And she did really good fried chicken. And, her mom, my gram, was a wonderful country cook from Texas who, made amazing fried chicken and collard greens and black-eyed peas and these really good deep fried hand pies she made. Like apple. What else? Apple and peach, I remember.
That sounds really good.
They were amazing. And she did preserve, she made her own did her own preserves and jams and things like that. Cornbread. I remember cornbread dipped in buttermilk was I never developed a love for that, but that was something that my grandma and my aunt and my mom all dipped their cornbread in buttermilk. So
I've seen that, but yeah, I can appreciate that that is not a tradition that you brought to our family, because that doesn't sound great to me. But
my gram was
people's yums.
My gram was an excellent cook.
Yeah. So you said, I heard you say that Nana didn't cook for joy, right? Like she cooked because she had to, because that was like part of her role in the family.
Right.
Like when did cooking become for you like a source of like fun or joy? Because I have a very specific memory around that, but I would love to hear yours.
Probably I would dabble in trying to make something better than in my 20s. I would try to cook something that was, better than just like a hamburger patty and canned green beans or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I remember the first times. I guess it was when I moved. I moved in with your mom, and we would have like people over for dinner. I would try to, imitate things that I'd seen on restaurant menus, something like that. So maybe a little bit before you were born.
I have a very vivid memory of like you leaving, like once you stopped working nights at SMI, like food really transformed in our house. Like I remember all of a sudden that was kind of like, that became like an important part of our routines, because we couldn't eat dinner together, all four of us, up until then. Right. And like then from then on, that was kind of like, that was the thing that we really prioritized, was we all ate dinner together.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, I didn't consider that part of it, that up until you were...
That was the summer between second and third grade, because I remember you getting a phone call from Ira on the Disneyland tram.
Yes, that's right. That is true. I remember that. I'm surprised you remember his name was Ira.
But I had never heard the name Ira. I thought it was really interesting. It's like a core memory.
That was when I got out of working in restaurants and working nights. So only being home for back then, before that, I was only home for dinner 2 nights a week. But I would try to make decent dinners those 2 nights a week. But after that, when I started working days, we started having dinners, family dinners, every night, and tried to make them a little adventurous, at least on occasion. I mean, look, we ate a lot of grilled cheese.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of, gosh, I'm trying to think of what we used to eat a lot of when you guys were both living at home. That was like kind of like a weeknight dinner. And
we did like a lot of, stir fry or easy pasta.
Yes, yeah, a lot of easy pastas and things like that.
But grilled cheese was like the go-to when, Sawyer had baseball and I had night practice, and we would go get like a thing of tomato soup at Oliver's.
Right.
And have grilled cheese.
Yeah.
But
we did that a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always just kind of, like weekends in your house always felt like you would take on like a project meal.
Yeah.
Right? I
definitely spend more time on it. I would look for new recipes that were, simple enough for me to handle, but that were, something a little bit new on weekend nights when I had more time, rather than just rushing home, trying to get dinner on the table before you guys had to go do your homework and go to bed.
Right. I always kind of saw the kitchen as like your domain, like that was your space. Did it feel like, does it feel like that's kind of like when you step into the kitchen and you get, your me's kind of going and all of that, like what do you usually, what's your mood? What do you feel when you're in the zone in the kitchen?
I kind of, I sort of like get into just the labor process of it. I look at the recipe and see what needs, how everything needs to be. I like to look at the recipe and like not go through it step by step and say, oh, now I need, a quarter cup of diced onion. So I'm going to dice onion. And
right.
I like to get, set up everything so that it's chopped or diced or marinated or whatever. And that I, well prepared and organized to, recreate the actual cooking part of it. And, I do get, there's I don't know, I guess it's sort of the routine of chopping and dicing and all that kind of stuff is sort of, because it requires a little bit of precision, I do kind of get locked in. Yeah. I guess. And
is it like meditative for you?
Somewhat. Yeah, somewhat. Which is why I'm kind of quiet. I don't like, when I'm in the kitchen, I don't, I might have a baseball game on the TV while I'm doing it or whatever, but, I guess I don't always make it a real, the kitchen's not always real sociable when I'm cooking sometimes.
I think that's a fair assessment. So the kitchen has kind of become like you and Mom have put a lot of work into the kitchen itself. Like what is like I so the crux of this podcast is really tapping into the intersection of food and pleasure. And we've been talking a lot about how food is something that can be really healing, or food that can be something that's, a way for us to connect to community in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
How, in what ways does food feel, connective or pleasurable or restorative to you?
Um, well, it gives me pleasure to, like after I've completed after I'm done, it gives me pleasure to sit down and look at the finished product, which is why I post pictures of it.
Oh yeah.
It, when I did, like if I do risotto or whatever, and at the end of it, it's like this, it looks really good. I take pride in that. I do like if I post a picture of, something I've made on Facebook or Instagram, and my greatest pleasure is if somebody like Massimo
Uh-huh.
comments, and says, "Oh man, that looks great." He owned one of the best restaurants in San Francisco for,
Right.
15 years, and if he says that looks really good, or somebody like that comments on my food. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are chefs or own restaurants, and if I get a compliment from somebody like that, it does mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
So I take, satisfaction in that way, but I also, I just take satisfaction in the fact that it's something that I created, and it tastes good, and it gives me comfort. As well as I do that I don't have a lot of people over for dinner very often, so it's usually just me and mom. And, I take pride in that, she enjoys the food that I cook. But it's obviously over the last couple of years, we haven't had very many people
Totally.
over to cook for. But we did a few weeks ago, and they were like, before my surgery, and they were like, "Oh my God, these pizzas are amazing. You should open a restaurant." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sore from making 3 pizzas." So,
Right. Like part
I
of
know
the
I know how much work it is to own a
right.
restaurant. I call on restaurants every day, and
Right.
I know what a struggle it is for them to survive. So I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, it sounds like part of the fun of cooking for you is it being something that is just for you, and not necessarily something, and like on occasion it's something that's for whoever comes over for dinner, but it's not necessarily like the thing that you have to do every single day to pay the bills, right? It's something that you get to do at the end of a day to kind of, zone in or zone out and just
I have,
exist.
yeah, I have no delusions that cooking at home is like, cooking in a restaurant or owning a
Right.
restaurant or being responsible for a payroll or providing structuring a well organized working restaurant kitchen. I I witness that every day, and I have lots of friends that own restaurants, and I um, I'm in awe of their ability to do it because it's extremely hard work.
Yeah, definitely. Um, are there any, so you said one of the fun things about cooking, or one of the nice things about cooking, is the aspect of comfort. On a day where maybe you're feeling a little down, or you're seeking that kind of warmth that comes from food, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you to cook?
To cook?
Uh-huh. Or to eat, right? It doesn't have to be to cook. It can be just to eat in general. If I'm
Yeah.
seeking comfort, I'm not gonna make tom kha. I'm gonna, order takeout tom kha because that's my go-to.
Yeah.
But what's the thing that, when you're maybe under the weather, or you're feeling, like you really miss your kids who live in a different state or whatever?
Yeah.
What do you eat?
Um, depending on the weather,